back to Machtails from the Cantina Live, the postseason edition of this show, episode number 2. There's a lot to talk about. A lot has happened, and I just realized that I did not adjust the lights accordingly in the Wampa Cave. We're doing a little bit of a run and gun, throw and go, if you will. Man, there's a lot to talk about. My Rays have been eliminated by the Cleveland Guardians. But man, what a close series, you know? A little bit of a disappointment from both teams. I think the highlight that I want to take away from the Rays in this 2-game wildcard set was the fact that Tyler Glasnow really pitched a gem. We threw him out there for game 2. I said if the Rays have any kind of chance, they need to make sure that he goes the distance. He was obviously hurt for a long time. I was at the game with my good friend Tyler Page, who is going to be joining us on the show tonight as a guest, as Matthew Rooney, producer Matthew Rooney, is going to be joining us as a guest as well, and kind of working the behind-the-scenes stuff for us. But Tyler Glasnow was injured in Chicago on Tyler Page's birthday in 2021, and he pitched the wild card game the other day. He did good, but not good enough. It was the longest wild card game in the wild card history. So, also on the show tonight, we have my old friend Gunnar Malmstrom. We'll be talking to you guys about a new project that we have. I'm also going to find out why he hates the San Diego Padres. And of course, Antonio from New Jersey, producer Antonio from New Jersey. He has found his wallet, and he still might be in New York City. But he's got his how do you say, composure? You know, the pitcher on the mound getting his act together. So he's joining us tonight. So without further ado, I would like to bring on my guest tonight, again, behind the scenes and representing the Dodgers. Would you please welcome back to the show, Matthew Rooney.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Chris. Dodgers and Padres are like my third favorite team since I grew up down there, and I went to a lot of those too. So I enjoyed watching the Pirates win. I was cheering for them against New York, and so I was very happy to see them win. So
the fact that you are a fan, because I can relate, but, you know, Rays, American League, Cubs, National League, they don't face off very often. When you're facing your other favorite team in the division series, where does that put you from a fan standpoint? I mean, where is your investment, I should say?
Well, the Dodgers are always the first team, but I still appreciate the Padres. It's different because with the Giants, we kind of have a rivalry, and so I really don't like the Giants very much. But when the Padres do good, it's kind of like the little brother, you know, and so I kind of feel good for them. Like if they beat us in the division series, then I would obviously be upset that the Dodgers couldn't make it through, but I would cheer for the Padres to go and face the next team, and I would cheer for them all the way through. In fact, and also just because they're West Coast teams as well, I was also happy to see Seattle get through, just because I think some of the West Coast teams, you know, sometimes don't get as much attention as the people on the East Coast, since there's fewer teams out here. So it was really great to see Seattle go through as well.
Yeah, we will be talking with Antonio, representing the mighty Yankees. It is a little difficult to picture October without the Yankees, even though they have not won. It was funny. Alexa had done a joke for me this morning. She said, "Do you want to hear a baseball joke?" I said, "Sure." She goes, "The Yankees have not won the World Series since I was invented." And I'm thinking, wait a minute. When the hell was Alexa invented?
That's pretty good.
I had to think about this. When was the last time the Yankees won a World Series? Believe it or not, it's been 2009. So that's
quite a while.
That's been a little while,
for them.
Especially for them as Giants. Speaking about Seattle and West Coast teams, I want to bring on my brother Tyler Page. Tyler, we missed you on the first episode, but we have you now. I know you're a White Sox fan, but I do know that I saw you cheering for Seattle when they were playing the White Sox on the south side. I never know what to call that field, because we call it the Cell. We still call it the Comiskey, old Comiskey Park, new Comiskey Park. Were you surprised or shocked that the M's had finally broke their 20? Was it a 20-year drought since 2001? That's 21 years.
Tyler, you muted yourself, I think.
I did? Okay. Oh, sorry.
That's what happens when you're not drinking, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, there was no drinking word of the night either.
There was no drinking word of the night. We just kind of dove right into this. But Tyler, were you surprised? Did you?
I was kind of surprised they made it to the playoffs. But now that we're in the playoffs, I'm not. I think this team is one of those teams that's going to be going as far as anybody, and I think they really showed it. The other night when you came back from an 8-1 deficit against one of the best teams in the country. So,
and that is crazy because that has, you know what, Matthew, if you don't mind, can you bring up the bracket here, because it happened. Not only was that 8-1 deficit erased, or did they come back, I should say, but also we saw that with the Phillies in St. Louis.
Yeah.
Who knew that the St. Louis Cardinals were only going to play 2 more games than the Cubs? And of course, the folks at Murphy's Bleachers had reminded us by posting it on the side, their little marquee on the board. But man, there were some crazy wild card facts, such as the 8-1 deficit, such as the Phillies scoring 6 runs in the 9th. And Tyler, we'll be checking in with you and this list of crazy facts. I got to tell you, before I was a Cubs and Rays fan, I was a postseason fan. It's the time of the year when the best are playing the best, and it's just an exciting time of year for baseball. And my family is not down, I should say up, up and out in the Seattle area, especially my aunt. Spent a lot of her time there. My uncle's been out there since the mid-'70s, but they are ecstatic and super happy. So I'm happy for the Macht family out in Seattle, and I will be rooting for the M's. They are my American League team. Will they beat the Cheatstros? God, that is hard to say because that is another 100-plus team winner, but we saw the 100-plus team winner, the Mets, if I'm not mistaken, got taken out by the Padres. So, as you guys know, a lot of shit can happen. Gunner, I see Gunner in the green room giving the middle finger to the Mets.
No, not to the Mets, to the Padres. Hate the Padres.
To the Padres. Yeah, talking about the Mets and the Padres. Gunner, why do you dislike and of course, I got to give a proper introduction to Gunner. Gunner is no stranger to the show. He is the host of the name of your show, Gunner and the Pistols.
Gunner and the Pistols podcast, yeah.
And of course, the Lost podcast show, which is called
We Have to Go Back.
We Have to Go Back. So, and you've been podcasting for a long time.
What a decade.
But why do you hate the Padres so much, man?
So I don't know if I hate the Padres as much as I just hate Manny Machado. He ruined our season a couple years ago. We did everything in our power to lure him to Chicago, to the South Side. We signed his brother-in-law, Yonder Alonso, and we signed his best friend, John Jay, and it just ruined our season. But the guy that he would have replaced since Machado signed with San Diego has the highest batting average in baseball since, and won a batting title. Could have won a second batting title this year if he didn't get hurt. But TA, who knows where he would be right now if we wasted that money in Machado. But still, it irks me. I went to a game this year and someone was actually wearing a John Jay jersey. And it just made me mad. I don't know if he was wearing it ironically or if he actually went out and bought a John Jay jersey. But I think that's where my hatred starts. And the reason everyone hates the Yankees, which I'm not saying I'm a Yankees fan. My wife is from New York, but I do stand up for them in the 90s when everyone says, oh, the Yankees just buy their team. Well, sit back and think about that team when they were winning in the early 2000s and the 90s. Jeter, Posada, Bernie Williams, Mariano, Pettit, all Yankees, like deep down inside, hardcore Yankees they came up through the system together. And then the rest of their players they picked up along the way, a lot of them were through trades. So San Diego is kind of the National League version of, I feel, of the Yankees, where they're just trying to buy their team and pick up players on the cheap.
Machado plays third base, right?
Can we get over that? He was a shortstop. And
but I would take him over Yohan Moncada any day of the week.
I would take my grandma over Yohan Moncada. She could probably get to that ground ball a little faster, and she's been dead for 9 years.
Well, hey, somebody, Gunnar, I know your wife is a big Yankees fan, huge Yankees fan. So you gotta, like I said, my daughter asked me at the Cubs game 2 weeks ago, Daddy, do you hate the Yankees? And I said, no, I respect the Yankees. But without further ado, this man lost his wallet last week, could not join us, is a producer of the show. And I don't want him waiting in the green room. You do not want a producer waiting in the green room longer than he should be. Antonio from New Jersey, welcome back to the show, my friend. How are you feeling as a Yankees fan? Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling like, here we go again? Alexa, that was a bad joke. That wasn't necessary. Where are you at as a Yankees fan right now on the day, I would say the eve of the division series?
That is one heck of an intro, Chris, right there. Jeez. I think you hit on every single thing that I dislike about that. I feel somewhere, I guess, in between, right? The Yankees season was fantastic to open up with. Then our bats went dead in August, and we had a terrible August. September kind of came back, but then our pen started going. Our bullpen started getting, thinned out. So I really honestly don't know how I feel. I know Cleveland's got a good young team, and they are coming up. They're kind of like the Mariners right now. It's kind of like they can't do any wrong because they don't care if they do anything wrong, right? So they have that fearlessness to them. So that makes them very dangerous. But at the same point, we're getting healthy, and I like our pitching right now. So I feel like we're going to have a competitive series, but we're going to come out on top.
Well, I need to ask you something. And again, we love the stats of the game. We love, the MLB Network and sharing all that knowledge that we learn from those programs and talking about it. But one of the things that I love to do is really get the fans' perspective, the people that buy the tickets, the people that sleep, eat, and die with this team. Down the stretch, Judge was going after Maris's record, and I thought that was fascinating that it almost happened on the last day of the season, very much like when Roger Maris broke Babe Ruth's record. But were you going into late September, early October, thinking, hey, Aaron Judge is the only thing that matters, or hey, we won the AL East and we're going into the postseason? I mean, where was your mindset during that?
It was definitely more about the Judge. It was definitely more about Judge. I'll tell you at that point. That was the biggest, brightest storyline. That also in our two, kids that we called up, the Oswaldos, right? Cabrera and Peraza. They've been doing fantastic when they've been out there. So there have been, some silver linings to a bad August. What I will say is about winning the AL East, it was fun doing it at Toronto after Vladdy Jr. starts stomping around talking about his house. I love Michael Kay. I don't know if you guys caught that, but our well-known announcer out here, Michael Kay, had a great little line after they won. He was like, well, I just want to say thank you to Vlad Jr. for letting us celebrate in his house. That's kind of him. So that was
it's all about how, it's funny. I wanted to go to Cleveland, but then I didn't want to go to Cleveland because speaking about somebody's house, the Cleveland games, I started seeing a sign behind home plate like, 2020 Cash takes out Snell during the, game 5 of the World Series. And I'm like, okay, we don't really need to see that fact on a sign. And then I heard chants of Tampa sucks. And I'm like, wait a minute, we're not playing the Yankees. We're not playing the Red Sox. We're playing the freaking Guardians. And they're treating us like we're some kind of monster. I don't know. I think because why do you guys think fans act poorly to their teams? Not all fan bases do that. We can definitely say that about the Phillies fans. Now, are the Phillies fans acting like animals yet? What do you think it is about fans just acting a little bit like Star Wars fans, when they see something they don't like, what is that? Tyler, you want to chime in on that one?
Yeah. I think Cleveland fans in general are just horrible people most of the time. So, yeah, they're gonna act like that. Show up to the postseason games and don't show up to their team at all. Much like Sox fans in that regard. So I'll diss them and I'll diss us. But yeah, I mean, I think it's all right to jeer and jab, but unless you're playing the Astros, you can't take it too seriously. So
yeah, unless you're playing the Astros, right? Where can we all agree? Can we all agree that the team that nobody is going to root for, unless you're somehow, from Texas, nobody's going to be rooting for the Astros, no matter who they play. Is that a fair assumption?
Except if you're an Astros fan, man, I see those guys everywhere. Some of them feel like they did nothing wrong.
I got people down here.
I would have to say I give credibility. I tip my cap to the Astros fans for sticking behind a team that had cheated and just got a slap on the wrist. And somebody today was on Facebook and they had said, I've been a fan since a long time. I went to, the old park, that was where they filmed Bad News Bears and, the Dome. Yeah. And I used to see Nolan Ryan pitch. Yeah, that was like the Astros that everybody, I guess, can still respect. But the Altuve Astros, like Jimmy Mack today said, he will always chant, fuck Altuve, no matter if he's in church, pumping gas, buying groceries. And I mean, there's a lot of truth to that because, God, especially Matthew, facing the Dodgers and taking that from them. I think there's a rematch there, but wouldn't you like to see them go down before it came to that rematch?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would prefer the Mariners over the Astros. That's for sure. Like I said, they're a West Coast team, and I don't know. I've just always had a soft spot for the Mariners. I think probably similar to Tyler. Tyler was a big Griffey fan, and I as well in the '90s really liked Ken Griffey Jr. So that just kind of translated into liking the Mariners as well. And I think they have cool colors and stuff too, to be honest. So I enjoy watching them too. So definitely over the Astros. But I mean, it wouldn't be bad to see the Dodgers go against the Astros. But I also don't feel like, we need to prove anything to people that were better than Houston, just because, it was exposed that they cheated. And so that's, how they won that series. And so I'd rather see, two teams that I respect play each other in the World Series than have the Astros there because we think we have something to prove. And I don't think we do.
I think speaking about respect, I think when you see Antonio, wouldn't you rather see the Yankees play the Blue Jays than you would face, the little engine that could? I think they're really the underdog. And I would say besides the Padres, Gunner's going to disagree with me on this, but I would say that everybody's going to hate on the Astros, but who would not want to love on the Mariners? It's like, this is a team that, Antonio, do you think that's diminished because the Blue Jays, obviously an AL East rivalry, who would you rather?
The Blue Jays go down. They were my biggest rival this year. Not the Rays, nothing against the Rays, but that was the one team that everybody was so hot on at the beginning of the year for when talking about the AL East. And I'm just so happy that
nobody got credit except for the Blue Jays. And here they are. They didn't even win one game during the postseason.
Fired their coach halfway, right? There was just a lot of background noise too. I'm just happy to see them out.
They fired Charlie. Charlie had no reason being fired. That was a bad decision. And of course, Charlie was on the Rays organization for a long time. So the rivalry between the Blue Jays and the Rays was kind of non-existent until they fired Charlie. Then things started heating up. But I do want to comment on Blue Jays fans. It's too bad that the Nortons were not able to join us during the Mocktails postseason edition here. But Blue Jays fans are quick, as a lot of fans are, behind the keyboard to say, fuck this team, fuck that team. They do not care for the Rays fans. But all I could think of when they got swept in the wild card series was like, you probably didn't want to talk too much shit until you had, a chance to prove yourself. These are not the AL East division winners. That's the Yankees. And you don't hear the Yankees shitting all over everybody and talking about bunch of smack. I never had problems with Yankees fans, never had problems with Red Sox fans. Obviously, Tyler has problems with drunk Cub fans. Matthew Rooney, I'm sure you've had your fair share with Giants fans and so on and so forth. Tyler, there's been so many things that have happened during the wild card series. What is the one crazy stat that you have in front of you that we did not really talk about yet? Because we talked about the 8-1 deficit. That never happened. We talked about the longest wild card game in wild card history. Any other stat that pops up in front of you? We're like, man, this is kind of crazy. Brad does chime in. This is going to rub you guys the wrong way, especially you White Sox fans. Brad is a good friend, Patreon supporter. The Rays and the White Sox have played in the exact same number of postseason games. Tyler, I remember that you shared that with me. But the Rays are no stranger to the postseason. Talk about a team with no money, but here we are. We only, played 2 games longer than everybody else.
Yeah, that stat hurts. And he got that from a White Sox stat guy, Jay Kuda, on Twitter, @JayKuda. And he comes up with all these great stats. The first one that comes to mind for me is just this: the Mariners are the only team that hasn't lost a postseason game in 20 years. Which is
it's obvious, right? Because they
it's
haven't
true,
played a
but
postseason game.
it's kind of dumb. And I mean, if you watch that Tampa Bay game, game 2, there were 39 strikeouts, which is the most in a postseason game, I think. So
I want to say too, the amount of hits, or the lack of hits, was that a record in the wild card game as well? Because you had that wild card game between the Rays and Cleveland. You had Rays scored 1, Cleveland scored 3 in almost 3 games of baseball.
Yeah.
It seems like a stat that you don't really want to be proud of by any means.
It was all hitting too. I don't think it was excellent. There are few pitches in there, but it was like watching the 2022 White Sox. That's what it felt like. Swinging at pitches out of the zone, watching pitches go right down the middle. So it was pretty bad.
Swinging at pitches in the dirt, Yeah. Antonio, how far do you think? And you could, if you're confident, you're confident. How far do you think the Yankees are going to make it this year?
Oh, of course they're going to win it easily. They're going to sweep it from here on out. I'll never have to worry again, and it'll be like 1998 all over. So,
Gunnar, do you agree with that statement, or do you think he's a little overconfident?
I don't know how much I trust that team. Like, they were so great the first half. I could see them sweeping their way through the playoffs, and I can see them getting knocked out.
Right.
And without winning a game. But, man, I find it interesting that Chapman got left off the roster. But that might be a good thing for you guys. I don't know.
Well, the thing about Chapman, too, is I think his time is come and gone. I thought his time was over personally with the Cubs. But then Madden let him pitch. And of course, he gave up that fucking home run to the Indians, and the rest is history. But I don't know. Do you think Chapman's done? How do you feel about Chapman, Antonio? Obviously, he's off the roster, but are you a fan of his? Or are you like, why did we re-sign him?
I want him off for a lot of money, right? I'm not the biggest fan, or I just don't think that I'm the biggest fan of his product that he's been putting on the field for some time now. So I know he was great. I get it. But, I think we have a lot on our table of what's coming up, right? With Judge and everything, we have to be smart about how we're spending our money over the next decade. So I don't know. I'm not on board. Happy he's off, especially with that attitude.
So Tyler, you think that Antonio thinks that they're going to win it all. How far do you think Seattle's going to go?
I think Seattle will beat Houston in 5.
5. Wow.
Yeah, I think it's going to go down to the wire, man. But I don't think they're going to win it all. I don't think they're quite ready. They have some magic going though. Who knows?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's everything changes during the postseason. It really does, and there's some crazy shit that happens. Looking at this bracket here, you have you know what? I gotta correct myself. I gotta call myself out. I said that the Yankees were gonna face Seattle. Shame on me for not knowing that. This is a hard bracket for me to keep up with. Thank God I did not put anything down on it because I would have been lost. I would have lost my ass. But the Yankees are playing Cleveland. Okay, Seattle is playing Houston. So, God, that rephrases the question too, Antonio. Personally, let me answer this for everybody. I think Yankees are going to destroy Cleveland.
Yep.
I really, really do. I felt nervous going in as a Rays fan to Cleveland because the Rays, they play good ball, but they piecemeal it together. And the Band-Aid is only going to hold the wound together for so long. I had zero expectations for that team going into the postseason. But seeing the way that Cleveland played against the Rays, which was not super impressive, it was nice to see an evenly matched team. The Yankees take it. I think everybody can agree with that. If somebody disagrees with that, speak now. Seattle beating Houston, I think we would all love to see that. That is the team that, why would you not love, like I said, why would you not love Seattle? Right. Why would you root for Houston? NL teams. Okay, let's switch it over. Matthew, how far do you think LA is going to go? How far do you think they are going to go?
I mean, I'd like them to go all the way through the World Series. I have a hard time making predictions just because I'm not a gambling person, and I mean anything can happen. Yes. Like you can have all the stuff in the world, but anything can happen. I would like to see LA go all the way, and I think they're capable of doing that. They have a great team. Yes. They had a lot of relievers on the IL over the past 2 months of the last 2 months of the regular season, and they're all pretty much back now. Tony Gonsolin was out. He can't do a long start, but he can start and do 3 innings at the moment, and then they can go to the bullpen. And then they've got great hitting. I mean, with those top, Trey Turner and Freddie Freeman had the top, I think, hits in the majors. But even the bottom half, some of the guys who were kind of struggling over the last month, they were picking it up and they were getting good hits and home runs and that sort of thing. And so I think they're capable. I did want to say, in the same way that you guys were talking about Toronto earlier and being so happy that they got shut down, I felt the same way about the Mets. I kind of have a distaste for the Mets, and I was talking to Tyler earlier in the wild card series because in particular I have a distaste for Max Scherzer, and because he was with the Dodgers last year in the postseason, and he kind of jumped ship toward the end of our run in the postseason, and so I've kind of had it out for him anyway. And so I was texting Tyler during that first game.
God, you got your gift.
I was up and up through the roof cheering when they were getting all those runs off of him. It was so awesome.
Yeah, I know. Does anybody, Tyler, do you have that stand in front of you? Was that Max? Mad Max is what I like to call him, and some of the people in the baseball world. But was that his worst? Again, like Chapman, his time is kind of. We can say that Mad Max's time is kind of come and gone, especially when you're giving up that many runs. Was that his worst postseason performance to date?
Oh, I don't know, man. That's pretty bad.
Didn't he get a big paycheck too with the
Mets?
He's
$42 million a year.
So you don't see Andrew Friedman signing people like that.
No, he's just someone who, all the commentators are always boosting him up and saying that he's so amazing, and just in general, they were all saying that the Dodgers are probably going to face the Mets and they're going to get beat by the Mets, and they've got DeGrom and they have Scherzer, and I was just first of all, we have pitchers just as good as them, but it was just great to see San Diego come in and take care of business. The first game they rocked Max, and then of course DeGrom did very well in his game, but then yesterday they one hit the Mets, which was also great to see.
Musgrove was phenomenal in that game.
Yeah, and I'm not a huge fan of Musgrove. He's kind of talked trash a little bit on the Dodgers this year, But it was cool to see him go in there and take care of business. And so I'm hoping he got that out of his system with the Mets. And then when we see him, because when Musgrove has faced the Dodgers this year, he hasn't done very well. And so I'm hoping we can keep that going.
That was Scherzer's worst playoff game. He's never allowed more than 3 homers.
More than 3. That is absolutely crazy. That had to have pissed off. They were talking, Antonio, you can relate to this. You live in New Jersey. You work in New York. That traffic, all those fans commuting like crazy, but we're from Chicago, so we can relate a little bit on that level as well. And of course, LA can do this. But you go to the ballpark, and you know what's funny? Talking about a fan's perspective, and being in the TV world, they show the fans, the sad fans, and then you know how they get you with the double slap in the face? They start showing the young children. They were showing the kids with the Blue Jays makeup on and the Blue Jays face paint on, and and with the Mets they did the same thing. And how can you not? We're human. How can you not feel bad for the fan base that is just getting their asses handed to them like that? But it happens to everybody, and depression is a huge thing. Obviously, Mental Health Awareness Month was in May. It's something that we like to talk about and share because it's just an important part of life. And fans get depressed. And it's important to overcome your depression. Tyler had sent me the the 5 stages of depression and
of grief.
Thank God I did not have high expectations. But this Charlie Brown quote sums it up best for everybody. This is something that I bought in downtown Disney World at the Magnet store. My problem is I like baseball too much. Charlie Brown is turned upside down. I think we can all relate to that for sure. Going back to the National League, did anybody see the Phillies beating the Cardinals? And how much money did you guys win or lose on that?
I didn't see
it. I can't believe that. I watched a little bit of it, but I can't believe it.
I mean, I was at the last game, the last home game for the Cardinals, and the atmosphere there, sold out crowd. It was nuts. They had a whole ceremony for Pujols and Molina. And then they lost to the Pirates that day, which was kind of ominous. And then to go on and lose the 2 postseason games, going out on a real low note. So
yeah, unbelievable, man. And if you take a look at this bracket for the millionth time, just for reference sake, I would say the Phillies don't have a chance against the world champions from last year. But stranger things have happened. Nobody could predict a Phillies 2-0 win over the Cardinals. I think the Padres were a little bit of a surprise to the Mets, for sure. I don't think anybody had seen that coming. And I think if you want to put together a crazy stat on this whole thing, the Cardinals were the only division winner. They won their division that got eliminated by a wild card team. I don't believe anybody else had won their division and had lost. I think it was just the Cardinals. So, man, and I'm a Cubs fan. I don't hate the Cardinals. I know that sounds weird to a lot of people, but I got into baseball very late. I know Pujols and Molina are a big deal to that organization, and that was kind of like a big moment, Tyler, that you saw. That's why you went down for that, just as a baseball fan in general. But what a shitty way to just kind of close out the. It would have been fun to see them win.
Yeah, something with a bang. Can I ask Antonio a question?
Yeah, you sure can.
How did you feel when George Springer went out?
Why?
Because I felt isolated on an island where I was like, fuck this guy. He's a cheater.
Yes, that's exactly how I felt. Exactly. Sorry, I don't want to curse too loudly. My children will hear me.
Oh, yeah.
I can hear them in the background, so I know they're present.
Because, I have some choice words about it. Not a big fan.
Yeah. All right, cool. I'm not alone.
That's all I'll say. I'll keep it close to my thing. But I will say, just real quick, Braves, I feel like are one of those teams that not a lot of people are talking about, but they seem really dangerous to me. Just from the few games I've seen, and they seem to be building that speed, right? Where like the Mets were being deflated towards the end of the season. Braves seem to be on a hot streak. So I'm very interested to see how they do against Philly. I think they're going to crush them.
And I want to cheat. I know a lot of people cheat and they look at notes in front of them, and that's exactly what I'm doing. Now, Atlanta has won 101 games. So, Antonio, I have to kind of say, I don't think they would necessarily be the sleeper team. I would not be surprised if they went to the World Series. But again, we saw the Mets. The Mets won 101 teams. I'm sorry, not 101 teams. They won 101 games. And, okay, now I'm looking at this right now. And it looks like the Braves and the Mets had – this is on MLB.com.
Yeah, they had the same record if that's what you're going to get at. But I think the Braves got the division because I think they – I don't – is it they beat the Mets? Right.
Well, wait, they got the division because of why?
It might have been because they had won the what would we call the season series versus them?
Yeah, I think it's however many wins you have in your division. I think they've got more in the division.
Oh,
okay. Wow. So they have an identical record, but look at the Mets with Max. I mean, they're done. So
you also have to look at the fact that the Braves were down at the All-Star break by a lot of games, and they came back up and then beat the Mets. So it's pretty good.
Oh, wow. It's
actually really interesting because in New York, everybody was talking about the Yankees implosion, right? But in the background, quietly, it was actually the Mets that were having the biggest implosion, right? I think they lost a 10-game lead at one point at the very end, right? And blew it everything. So, I mean, I kind of feel bad for the Mets, but they were also a team that was very cocky. All of a sudden, you saw, in the city, suddenly a lot of Mets jerseys.
Oh, yeah. Well, again,
you guys can have your basement. That's awesome.
more of a bandwagon fan is the city. You know what? We're getting off the postseason subject a little bit, but Tyler and Gunnar, I did want to share this with you guys. As you guys are Sox fans, as a Cubs fan, when I go to the park on the south side, I do hear a lot of negativity towards the Cubs. I never get that vibe at Wrigley. And the funny thing is when I went there at the end of the season, speaking about bandwagon fans, such as the Mets, wearing, jerseys as opposed to, it's like they're picking their sides at that point. So all these Sox fans at the last game that the Cubs played, they're like, hey, what do you think about the Sox? What do you think about the Sox next year? And I'm like, okay, you guys are at a Cubs game talking about the Sox next season. That's fine. But if I was at the South Side, we'd be hearing about how much they hate the Cubs. Why are Sox fans mean to the Cubs fans, but the Cubs fans are not mean to the Sox fans? Can we get into that discussion, or should we save that?
That's a falsehood.
Cubs fans are worse to Sox fans than we are to the Cubs fans.
Yeah. It goes both ways.
Is that what you said?
The only reason that people think that they're louder is because the Cub fans are all in the bar across the street at Murphy's Bleachers and not actually watching the game.
That would not be me, but you'll see me drinking anywhere on any day, any street corner.
We're too busy drinking churro shakes in the Stadium Club section.
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't know, man. I don't want to sound like a fair-weathered fan by any means, but I grew up, in the late 70s, early 80s, where people were running around the streets wearing Padres hats and Pirates hats and Dodgers jerseys, and
they were the ugliest uniforms in baseball. The Padres.
It didn't matter where you were from. Everybody
Astros.
Astros. Everybody was trading baseball cards, and so I kind of grew up in an era where people were liking all the other teams because it was MLB. And that's why I'm wearing a hat tonight, because my roots are neutral, I would say, even though I am a huge Rays fan and a huge Cubs fan. But just because the Rays are eliminated and just because the Cubs had a worthless season doesn't mean that I'm excited to watch some good baseball down the stretch. Anybody have any money on any of this? Or because that's become a big thing. Or did anybody fill out the bracket at MLB.com to win? I believe it was $100,000.
I didn't fill out the bracket, but I put money when the Mariners went down by 7 runs. I put money on the Mariners to win.
Smart.
And I put money on the Mariners to win and the Jets to win. I parlayed it.
Wow.
Both those hit. So it was like plus 4,400 odds. I only put like $2 on it, but like it was
still
I won like 150. So
and then good. I don't know, is that better's regret where it's like you put couple bucks down on and you're like, oh,
I would have been mad if I lost $10 for no reason. Like, I mean, I didn't see that coming. No one saw that coming.
I should have put down some really, really big money. Okay, let's ask this question. This is what I wanted to ask on the last show. I never really got a chance to. Okay, Antonio, who do you not want to lose to? If somebody took you out, I know according to you, you're going to win it all. But who would you not want to lose to? The Guardians, Seattle, or Houston?
I wouldn't want to lose definitely to Houston without a doubt. We got to put them to bed. I want to be the team that puts them to bed. And I would actually hate to lose a World Series to the Phillies if we were ever to have that matchup again. Because I would never.
Yes. Well, you know what? You guys beat the Phillies in 2009. God, that's crazy, right? You're having that conversation, the Phillies and the Yankees in the World Series. I see the Yankees going to the World Series, but not the Phillies. Gunnar, who do you think is going to go to the World Series, and who do you think is going to win it all?
It's hard to bet against Atlanta. I mean, baseball honestly is all about the hot team at the time. Look at 2005. I mean, the Sox were dominant in the playoffs. Were they the best team? I mean, they were in first place the whole season, but they struggled a little bit towards the end. But what happened? El Duque pitched one of the greatest innings I've ever seen, and the Sox got hot, and they won the World Series. So, I mean, Atlanta's hot now. I'd love to see Seattle. I mean, my second favorite player growing up was John Olerud. And if you think about his career, he played for Toronto, who made the playoffs, Seattle, who made the playoffs. I played for the Mets, who made the playoffs, the Yankees, who made the playoff, and ended his career with the Red Sox, who did not make the playoffs. So for John Olerud, I'm kind of hoping Seattle. But again, the Yankees, they could sweep their way through. That's how good they are. It's just which Yankees are we going to get? I'm rooting for Seattle. It could be the Yankees, but it's going to be hard to beat Atlanta. LA is good, but it's going to be hard to beat Atlanta.
So you're it's going to be hard to beat Atlanta. You're rooting for Seattle. You have faith in the Yankees.
And San Diego can.
Yeah, I know. I cannot see San Diego beating the Dodgers. But again, we've seen some crazy, crazy shit. Speaking about seeing crazy shit, Tyler, what is next on the list from the gentleman that works for the White Sox that it was nice enough to follow baseball in the postseason that, it thrown up some crazy stats. I love this game. This game has been around for a long, long, long time, and we're still making history in 2022, which is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fresh. It's fresh when a game is that old and you're still, making history. What do you have next on that list?
Tigers and the Angels are the only teams that have not played in a postseason wildcard series. So
Tigers and the Angels.
I don't particularly think that's going to change anytime soon, but you never know.
Yeah, I can't see the Tigers doing anything. And the Angels should do something where they don't have to play the wild card. They set themselves up to win the division, and look at where they ended up. And again, like the Blue Jays firing Montoya, Angels firing the legendary Joe Madden. I know some people might disagree that he is not the legend that I make him out to be, but to me, he is. Rays and Cubs all the way. I do have some stories here from the first episode that we never got into. Some good stories, obviously, Seattle, beating that drought, of course. That was huge. Phillies were eliminated by the Cardinals in their last postseason in 2011. And it was kind of ironic maybe if you were watching the game, I was not. I watched the recap, but I think there's a story there. The Cardinals had eliminated the Phillies in 11, and here we go. We got the Phillies eliminating the Cardinals 2-0. Now the Rays, I want to get back to the Rays, of course. They had won every wild card game that they were part of. They were never eliminated in the wild card series. Obviously, they couldn't muster up one win against the Guardians. Man, the Guardians are hanging by a thread. I have a feeling they are going to get crushed and pulverized again by the Indians. By the Yankees. See, that's the beer talking to me already. And again, Seattle and Houston. God, it is tough. It is tough to say. I do want to talk about real quickly, Antonio from New Jersey. I have to apologize to you because we were in a hotel room mutually, not together. You were in New York. I was.
His wife's in the other room, man. I saw her in the background.
A different turn on that show.
God, what's going on in there?
Hey, you're in a hotel room with Mr. Chris. What's going on? But we recorded a segment of The Lineage, episode 2, and Antonio, I do owe you an apology because I said I was going to drop that on the next episode. That is actually going to be on episode 94 of Machtails. So I do need to clarify that face to face because I don't want you to think like, hey, man, you said it was going to be on 92. It's not on 92 and it's not on 93.
I fast forwarded through the entire last podcast. I didn't find it anywhere, Chris.
So it is coming soon, and I want to.
Antonio's like Rich Brendel.
I love this guy.
Yeah, I got a Rich Brendel Patreon profile instead, but I do want to just say thank you to the producers of the show. I have two of them. Technically, I have 3 of them because Tyler is producing the show. He's been a big part of the show since the beginning. But I got to thank you guys for producing the show and your contribution. And Matthew, we're going to get into the Wampa Cave show and tell. And for anybody that wants to be part of the show, head on over. $5 is gets you the podcast. $2 gets you in the door. $11.38 gets you so much more. I do also want to share with Matthew. Are you getting your money's worth?
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
Tyler, don't mean to put you on the spot. You feel like you're getting your money's worth?
Yeah. I get my money's worth from the podcast and the flashbacks. Like when you throw out an audio recording from 2006 Forcecast days, you can't really find that anywhere else. So.
Yeah, the Inside the Vault. Yeah, Matthew, again, thanks for taking the time to dig that up for people because Rebel Force Radio, friends of the show, they have so much out there. And I know a lot of you guys listen to them as well. A lot of you guys found me through them. But a lot of my content that, when I got interviewed by Jimmy, that's just so deep in their vault that I decided to make it inside my vault. Thank you, courtesy of producer Matthew Rooney, for digging through their archives and making it part of ours. Antonio, you feel like you're getting your money's worth?
Definitely. And a big shout out to Matt for everything he's been doing with that vault stuff. I really enjoyed that as well because I'm like Tyler. I love going back and just listening to old episodes, just to kind of see, how it started and how off we were with speculation or whatever it may be, just the fun stuff that goes along with that. And so Forcecast stuff is definitely hard to find. So that was great.
Yeah, it was funny because Tyler, posted it was the last Inside the Vault was hilarious, and I'm like, you got to expand on that. And he goes, it was hilarious because my voice was different, and God, I should maybe see an ENT about that. Why has my voice changed in the last 14 years? But the funny thing is that there was so much content that I was when Jimmy asked me what's next. And I had said I was going to make a documentary on Empire Strikes Back with the Vince Norway footage. And of course, we all know that footage got, erased from history. It's sitting, the backup drive is sitting in Frank Yario's trailer in the Los Angeles area. Hopefully that weather is not as cruel to a hard drive that is very outdated as it would be in the Chicagoland area. Gunnar, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I want to talk about a project that you and I are working on. Gunnar, you're the only one here in this circle of friends. Why are you not part of the Mocktails from the Cantina Patreon supporter?
Well, let me be honest with you. I am a former radio guy. I've been podcasting for a decade, and I'm a stand-up comedian. And I literally have 8 or 9, maybe even 10 friends who have Patreons. I can't afford all of my friends' Patreons. And so, I mean, there's you, there's Jimmy. I mean, Tyler, he's on a Patreon with the Rebel Force Radio. I just can't afford all of my friends. And I feel like I can't pick and choose. But Chris, if I did pick you, buddy.
Well, Gunnar and I have something that was inspired and kind of pushed a little bit by Brad Riverdahl, and I want to thank him for tuning in tonight and for his support. There was a player on the Blue Jays called Bo Bichette, and every time I hear Bo Bichette's name mentioned, how can you not think of Bo Sheck?
Oh, I thought you were going to say Boba Fett.
I kind of thought he was going for Boba Fett too.
Or Boba Fett. It's got a little bit more Boba Fett, right? Bo Sheck.
Yeah.
So, it sounds a little bit more like Boba Fett. But my mind goes right to the Cantina, as it always does. And after coming back from St. Pete with Brad, we were kind of yelling, we were heckling Boba Sheck at the Boba Fett, I should say.
You said Boba Fett.
I'm getting them all mixed up. But when we were at the Rays game, they were playing the Blue Jays. I was yelling, "Hey, go back to the canteen and have another blue milk." But Gunnar and I are starting a free podcast show. We're going to see how it goes. Beers with Bo Sheck. I think that's long overdue. This is an announcement that I'm making for the first time. Have not even made this on the Mocktails from the Cantina podcast episode, but Gunnar and I are going to co-host together a show that is going to be all about Star Wars deep cuts and Star Wars wackiness coming at you this fall. Gunnar, are you excited to do that? And how come
I'm really excited. This podcast is perfect for me because if there's anything that anyone who knows me knows is that I obsess about the smallest details. And I know more information about them that I can tell you more about Wedge Antilles than I can tell you about Luke Skywalker. I have a Wedge Antilles shelf, if you can see it right there. That's all my Wedge stuff. So I am really excited just to deep dive the Bo Shecks of the Star Wars universe and talk about just kind of give these guys the credit they deserve. And there's a crazy story about Bo Sheck and the actor that played him. And I'm sure we'll talk about Wedge and we'll talk about just some of the stuff that doesn't really get the attention that it should. So I'm really excited about it. We've been talking for years about finding something to do together. We did a small live podcast. You remember this? We did a small podcast, last about 4 episodes back. The Force Within Us podcast companion, I think it was a Force.
Yeah, and you know what? Matthew Rooney is going to ransack that vault and turn that into an Inside the Vault segment that you guys can get on Mocktails from the Cantina Patreon at the 1138 tier or higher. But yeah, I am excited about doing this. It's kind of weird that I'm announcing this on a postseason baseball special. But why not?
What are my favorite loves? You too. What are our favorite loves? Star Wars and baseball. I mean,
yes, and of course, not including music, but that is what Antonio has producing for the show with the Lineage, which will return next week. But yeah, again, Beers with Bo Sheck. It'll be a free podcast. Aren't all podcasts free? No, not the one that you guys are paying for on Mocktails from the Cantina. That is where I open my life to you guys, and I use that as a personal journal. Well, hey, again, thank you to all my guests. And again, tomorrow is going to see the New York Yankees face the Cleveland Guardians. Seattle face the Cheatstros. And then we have a pretty interesting series. NL is interesting. AL is kind of a battle of David versus Goliath, in my opinion. I think the NL is the Padres versus the Dodgers, Phillies versus the Braves. I think anything can happen there. I'm going to go Yankees. I hate to say this. I'm going to say Houston beats Seattle, even though that is not what I'm pulling for. And I'm going to say Braves, and I'm going to say Dodgers. But isn't that too predictable? That is way too predictable to say. And, of course, we had predictions for the first round, and look at how those ended up. Nobody predicted what was going to happen. Tyler, people can follow you on Rebel Force Radio. You answer the phones for them. They bring you on. And, of course, people can always hear you on Mocktails from the Cantina. Matthew Rooney, people can always hear you on the live episodes and the Inside the Vault segments. Gunnar, you got the Lost podcast and the Gunnar and the Pistols. How many episodes you have? Probably hundreds at this point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, wideopenmike.net has the entire archive of not just stuff I'm in, but just stuff from the network, including the Force Within Us podcast companion, wideopenmike.net. And
Antonio, again, thank you for your patience on letting me get to the lineage number 2. And I thank you for that. That is a really, really good music segment that can be heard on Mocktails from the Cantina, as well as giving you the platform to produce such wonderful content. So I thank you. And that is exactly what you guys get at the producer level. I want to thank all my guests for joining me on the show tonight. I want to thank all the baseball teams that are advancing to the division series. May the force be with you all. We will be back again, at least with another episode of the podcast, the live show, where we talk about the next round of baseball. Matthew, if I don't mind, if you don't mind, I should say, bringing us. God, now I'm sounding like Harry Carey in the booth. Making some sloppy drinking mistakes here on a Monday night. If you could send us out with the Robert Hines Band. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in, not only live, but also tuning in on the replay. We will see you guys next time on Mocktails from the Cantina. And unfortunately, the Rays are going to have to see how far we can get next year. And maybe you guys are in the same situation. Don't let depression bring you down. It's only a game, they say. And there's always next year. Cha-cha and choo-choo. So long, everybody.